Hi everyone, thanks for staying this far into the sessions. My name is Cenk Emre. I'll keep it real short. I own a food business that rely heavily on imported goods. Roughly 80% of what we sell is an imported product directed by us or other third parties. I am going to puzzle you with some interesting stats to start with and ask a bunch of questions for our guests here. But prior to that, it was such a memorable moment when I saw PillPack on Mr. Ayhan's presentation earlier. In my past life, I used to be a management consultant, and I worked in the M&A team, due diligence team of the PillPack acquisition way back then. That was a nice coincidence. All right, quick question for the audience here. Prior to COVID, so roughly 2 years ago, the cost to bring a shipping container of food products from Turkey to the US East Coast was around $2,300. Make a guess what it is today. Data as of yesterday. Just make a guess. 5,000. Higher. Higher.
25.
Not that much, yes. 13,000 was the data that we got yesterday. Now imagine that's roughly 500% increase in 2 years. Guess what? Your local bread that you're paying $3, $4, $5 pretty soon is becoming $10. Just get ready for that. I can't give you a time, but pretty soon.
Stop eating bread, I guess.
Long way to avoid that.
Low carb.
Yeah. Now, again, quick show of hands. What's causing this? Make some guesses. Why is the cost to ship products from overseas increasing in such a wild rate? Go ahead.
Supply chain blocks due to the pandemic.
That's one. Gas prices, not really. Those goods seem to be shipped still.
Location of the containers in the wrong place.
One, perhaps one reason, but they have to be more direct. Here, one answer. You may not be involved with this, so may not know. China is taking shipping containers hostage. There's a trade war going on. What else?
Greedy businessman.
Greedy businessman. Perhaps. I'm not involved with those. There's a lot more reasons. I think Professor Erbil is going to tell us about that, but I don't know if you want to go in any particular order. Professor Riveras, I believe you're here to also contribute to the conversation.
If someone needs me.
Okay, awesome. So let's do this. Dr. Erbil, go first, please.
Thank you. If I can have it later, I have a couple of slides for you. So just exactly, I'm going to quantify. So this is, let's see. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to quantify some of the things that Cenk just told us. I mean, first of all, we are in the middle of a war right now. So this is unimaginable, but we are just seeing a second world war type, tanks on the ground type of war as we speak, as I speak here. And if you look at the impact of this war, I mean, there are some slides you cannot see this that well. These are mostly from the Deutsche Bank and from Apolla from Mustafa. You can see that its impact is pretty high up. This is the impact in terms of the disruption to the stock market here and how much it took it to bounce back. So if you look at the historical events, it's kind of that. So amongst everything else that has been mentioned, we also have a war that is affecting everything. So let me see this way. Yeah. So you can see there is defense spending, there is deglobalization that has been just mentioned in a way that with anecdotes, right? There is diversification of energy resources. So there is a lot of talk going on how we can just get rid of oil and coal. And then there is de-dollarization going on. You probably heard Mr. Putin wants to be now paid in not dollars. All of this are forcing the people here, investors mostly, on thinking about how should I reallocate my assets right now. This is also happening as I talk today to you here. And all of this is triggering, when are we going to get to the recession? And according to the poll, again, from Deutsche Bank,
people, economists, up until this month were not expecting a recession, not this year, not next year. People were saying 2024 is the magic number. But if you look at the last poll, this is the March flash poll, they're saying, no, 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 I think it's going to be next year. It's going to be closer. We have so many what we call external shocks right now. It is sensory overload. We don't know where something is coming. And of course, there is inflation. There is huge inflation, but what's going to be more important for our panel is more wage inflation. So very quickly, like in 2 minutes, the QE is ending, the earning growth is slowing, there is the risk-free rates are rising in the US, this is mortgage rates, and then there is a lot of fear that the Fed will not necessarily have a soft landing after 7 hikes. In addition to that, we have the new one here, which is the Ukraine, which has commodity prices being pushed up. There are sanctions and so on and so forth. So it's a situation that is developing right now. So this is all impacting what we call credit spreads here in the United States. So let me come to the question that Cenk posed first. So what are the primary factors of restraining your firm's revenues? That was asked to retail firms. And you can see around 2 years ago, in July 20, the answer was supply chain disruptions and weak demand. This is the yellow one is weak demand, the green one is supply chain interruptions. If you fast forward to this month, this is March 2022, 78% are talking about supply chain interruptions, disruptions. So this is becoming number one. Services, same. The number two here is limited operating capacity due to staffing shortages. You see that all around in Boston too. You go to a restaurant, the times are shorter. Some of the reservations are canceled because they don't have wait staff available for us. This is just here. Think about businesses that Cenk is trying to run here. Think about all the manufacturing companies. Look at that. So 2 years ago, their concern number one was weak demand. Yeah, COVID, sure. Fast forward today, weak demand is only 16%. 73% says, well, we cannot get any supplies. And then they say, we don't have people. Even if we get the supplies, we don't have people to put them together. My downstairs neighbor wanted to buy a bike. He had to wait like 3 months and he didn't get the bike. He got a box that he has to build the bike from. You know, even if you get the parts, you don't have the people to put it together anymore, right? So this is what Cenk talked about. Yeah, the transportation costs are nearly high, and this is specifically from China to US and Europe. You can see this is a huge increase that Cenk just talked about us. And let me just go further a little bit about chips. So this is the gap between ordering a chip and when it is delivered. So it was around 13 weeks. Now it's about twice as much, 26 weeks. That's 6 months. That's half a year that you have to wait between ordering a chip and when it's delivered.
Professor Erbil, we see the exact same pattern in potato chips as well.
Really? So when I say chips, it also applies to potato chips. Excellent.
Let's call them something else.
And the material shortages are getting worse. Businesses are also struggling to find workers. In the last week, did the business have difficulties in hiring paid employees? 56% say yes. And this is like for accommodation and food services. And manufacturing, 42%. And if you ask them in the last week, did the business have domestic supplier delays? Manufacturing, 70%, retail, 66%, construction, 63%. So this is pretty much where we are at. I just wanted to fortify Cenk's opening with some numbers, and I'm going to finish with this. Should we be naughty or nice? I think the next speaker can talk to that.
I would like to ask Mustafa Bey to jump in as he's heavily involved in logistics in his business. Please let us know of your perspective.
Right, so what happened is that before COVID, supply chain was a function that was working pretty normal. It wasn't disrupted or anything. So with the COVID, it got disrupted, so it started to get more attention every day. Nowadays, whenever I have a regular talk with anyone, everyone says like, what's the main problem? Like, is there one problem that can be fixed? And the answer is no, there is not just one problem. If there was only one problem, it could have been fixed by anyone, right? White House tried it a couple of months ago. They said, we will have the Long Beach port open 24 hours. And they thought that if the port is open, there would be congestion. Everything will go to the warehouses and everything was going to work. It didn't, because there are some other factors that wasn't it. Even if the port is open, there is no space in the 3PLs, third-party logistics companies, or they are not operating 24 hours. Even if they are, and they are not, there are not enough chassis, trucks to take those from the port to the 3PL. And even if they are, even if the chassis are available, the labor is not available. The truckers can only work 8 hours a day. There are like certain laws around it. So there are so many things that are affecting each other. And this is just the destination side of it. If you look at the origin, China is a zero COVID policy. So if there is one COVID case in the town, they close the whole thing. Right now, Shenzhen and Shanghai port is closed. So if the port is closed, you cannot even have the vessels depart from the origin. So all of these things are affecting each other. And the main thing, what is affecting the price of the containers, there is no unlimited supply of containers. These are the same containers going back and forth, going back and forth. If it cannot depart from the origin, it cannot go back. So the delay just builds up and builds up. And then the things happening like Suez Canal blockage, which takes like 6 months, 8 months for to clear. Then you have the Russia war right now, which will have more effects in like next year. So all of these are affecting this stuff.
Now, one more perspective here. This is not necessarily an issue with ocean freight. We buy heavily from the West Coast, especially farm products, ethnic farm products like sour green plums, generic. We bought a half a truckload, a quarter of a truckload last year. It costed us $1,300 to ship it from California to Boston. I was quoted $7,600 last week, and I said, no, there's just no way we can.
If there is from West Coast to East Coast, that's actually cheap, because right now the ongoing rate from West Coast to Houston is around $7,000. So these are the things, you know, like, and another thing is that the lead time. Normally, the lead time from Shanghai to Long Beach was 21 days for a vessel to go from one origin to destination. Right now, it's still 21 days if it can depart and if it can get to the port. Usually it cannot depart because of the reasons that I explained. And right now, the vessels are usually at berth for like, which means that they get to the port. Just think like you're at the airport, but you cannot get to the customs. You're stuck in the airplane itself. So the lead time went from 3 weeks to 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks. So all of these are creating this problem.
I'm glad we have so many professors in this panel, because the big questions coming up is what's going to fix this problem. I don't know if one of you gentlemen want to take a stab at the question. Dr. Palabiyik.
Well, first of all, take me a little breath. No offense, my friends here. Someone coming from the hospitality and tourism program sounds very depressing. I have to say that from right and left, everything sounds like, are we at the end? So it's really depressing. So even I'm coming from a culture with the recession view, I'm coming from the culture, the conflict view, I still feel like it's a little bit depressing. So hearing all these things. Again, no offense to my friends, but that's what's happening right now. There's a concept we have been hearing a lot recently. Probably it's the second most heard concept. It's called new normal. Now I'm looking at here, by looking at the things you are talking about, war, rates, conflicts, that doesn't really look like new, or it doesn't look like normal to me. So I guess even the term new normal doesn't look like new, doesn't look like normal. So how will we get out of it? I know we are in a stage that it's like uncharted water. So nobody knows where we are and how we will get there. But my impression, especially being in the hospitality and tourism, I see that I think the new currency is the trust. I think the new currency is the trust. So including like health problems, including the traveling, including doing the business, I think the first thing is the trust. Because we created so many conflicts, created so many issues that we don't trust each other and we don't trust the businesses either. And I also noticed that there is a very popular discussion right now is about globalization. And previous speakers mentioned like globalization is something is not what we thought. And the discussion looks like, I think there's a new term we can use for the globalization. It sounds like globalization 2.0, but it's not really what we heard. It's not really what we did. I agree with my colleague, Riveras, Dr. Riveras. I think it will be more localization with the different groups. And I think the internal businesses will increase. That's what I will see. And I also see that I think like we do in the United States, we will, all of us, I think we will go through, because that's what we do in the hospitality, in the tourism. I think we have to come together. We will see more partnerships. When I say the partnerships, the companies will start to marry each other. And we will see that people will start to take in charge. Hopefully, what we do in the United States, especially to get out of the problems with the tourism, you said we have a problem with the restaurants, we have a problem with the laborers, we have a problem with the labor shortage, and we have a problem that the prices are going high. And I see that in the tourism, the consumer behavior has changed. Now the consumers, they're afraid to do things, not only for the COVID-19, it's also for financial reasons, for health reasons. And now they're scared to go out with all the wars and conflicts. So I see that the emotion is changing and the prices are impacting us. The way we solve it, like I said, cooperation will start to cooperate with the businesses. If you want to hear little examples from my businesses, like in the restaurant business, in the hotel businesses, now the companies are working together. The breweries are working with the pizza restaurants, or the hotels are working with the travel agencies. The travel agencies are airlines working together now. I'm hearing like a couple days ago, they started marrying each other. I see that this is something that we will see a lot. We will start to go to diversification. If I would like to say a few things about hospitality and Turkey, probably we will, even though we are having some issues with the hospitality, still, if you look at the numbers today, according to our travel organization, the Turkey is still the 5th destination. Still is, we are attractive, even though we have so many conflicts. I would actually, probably will come back, what we did with here in the United States and Turkey, we had organizations, groups, and boards for the health. Probably will have the same boards, like science groups or tourism groups, and connect with the people from the industry. That's what we do, more cooperation.
There is something that I would like to highlight here. There was traces of it in Dr. Riveras' presentation as well. I wonder if one way to mitigate the labor shortages could be a very radical immigration reform of some kind, and I'd love to hear your perspective.
For many, probably will be shocking to know that thanks to Mexico, the auto industry in the United States was saved. So we should be actually congratulating Mexico for not killing the auto industry, not the other way around. So to that point, I think part of it, there's many issues that are happening, as you mentioned, and all of my colleagues here. Infrastructure, reform of infrastructure. Our transportation system in the United States is far from being exactly what we need. Why don't we use more trains? Why don't we automate some of the things? We all know the answer to that. There's a lot of things behind and not moving more into that direction. The other thing, regionalization. If we have a Mexico, if we have a Central America, if we have a Canada, well, we may need to pay more, but it will definitely be more convenient for shipping, not to wait for 25 days, but wait for, 3, 4, 5 days if it's coming from other places. So we really need to pick where we are really manufacturing in the future, and that's the globalization 2.0. It doesn't need to really be global. You're still going to have use free trade, but maybe for a region. The final point, when you were talking about immigration. I wrote a paper several years ago, and I thought that they were going to throw tomatoes at me when I mentioned that in the conference, and actually it didn't. So we should base our immigration based on the demand of what we need. Do we need people picking oranges? Let's get the best 25,000 people. Do we need doctors? Then let's pick the best one, and so on and so forth. And there was one president, I believe it was Bush, who said we should try to give visas, working visas for immigrants who want to really come here and work for 6 months and then go back to their countries. And some people thought, oh, that's crazy. Why is it crazy? I mean, many people really move to another country because they have certain needs, but they never really want to leave their own country. So that will solve a lot of problems. So a change of immigration absolutely required. And we need to really be looking at immigration from a completely different perspective. Because we may need immigrants from different levels, and that will probably help.
And I believe there is some economic connections, reminds me of Dr.
Friedman's, some philosophies about Milton Friedman's, some of his topics around illegal immigration is a beautiful thing because you reap the benefits of it and you don't have to deal with the social benefits that you need to provide to these people. Dr. Erbil had a point about this.
Thank you. So I just want to talk a little bit about the solution and talk to the student identity of this meeting. We have the New England Turkish Student Association, and I'm hoping that you are going to make the world a little bit better than we did. And I believe that, if you want to fix some of these problems, you have to think about what's in the root of many of them. Yes, we have many problems coming from many different directions. But if you really, really go deep, you will understand that we don't have a problem of creating value. We don't have a problem of creating a pizza pie. We have a big problem of sharing. So this is not only in Turkey, in developing countries, it's also particularly bad here in the United States. So if we can share better what we create, if we can have a better prosperity that is not necessarily equally, but better shared, I think some of these problems will solve themselves. And so I think that you should also think about inequality, and inequality comes in many different shapes and sizes and forms. I'm actually a little bit ashamed that we have 5 males sitting here talking to you. That's another inequality here. I think you can do better. And please, for Turkey, just for gender inequality, you don't have to do much. For the man, all you have to do is stop being an obstacle in front of women. You don't have to do anything, just don't do that. And then the Turkish potential will just double overnight. So that's what you asked, what can we do, how can we solve this? I don't think it will be solved in our lifetime, but I'm hopeful that our students here are going to make it better by just looking at the source of the problem.
Thanks so much. Is there anybody else who would like to contribute? We have about a minute left. If not, I'd like to thank everybody and the audience for their patience. Any questions we may take maybe in the next minute?
Yeah, sure. We have a couple questions, couple of minutes for questions.
I'm going to ask.
Done with the tips. I have an observation. I'm curious, food service workers, maybe in our state, let's not go to the US yet. what percent of their employee base is immigrants? Reason I'm asking is number one objection to and comprehensive immigration reform is, well, that's gonna steal local jobs. Americans are not gonna have any jobs. They don't work those jobs anyway. And what's the secret number in the suggestions?
Well, well, before I answer that, I have a question to the audience. Albert Einstein, when he came to the United States, do you think that he stole someone's job? I don't think so, right? So he didn't steal anybody's job because there wasn't a potential here. I will give you an example from one of my recent visits to one of the hotels. I took my students to visit the hotels and I invited the HR manager to talk to students. As soon as she came in and she said, we need people. That's the first thing she said. And she said, you can come anytime you want. You can leave anytime you want. You can work as long as you want. And you pick your position. So she was so desperate. And she said she had been in the hotel last 2 months. And she had been doing everything. So my personal humble guess is probably more than half is immigrants. And other half, well, maybe we can't call them immigrants. They are the children of the immigrants.
ESLs, English as second language.
So probably English is not their first language. I'll be honest, maybe it's not even second language. And they speak a good language, and they're ready whenever you call, and they will show up if you need them. They will work, they will do the job. The good thing is, if you are the boss or manager, you will be able to go home and sleep if they work. So we really need them.
And more drastic is front of the house, the serve staff tend to be more American. Once you go into kitchens, I know at least 20 food businesses, kitchens are 80% or more immigrants.
There was a movement at a time where TPS, the protected status for people from Central America, they were trying to stop and eliminate the TPS for Guatemalans, Nicaraguans, and everyone from Central America. And the business, the restaurant business here, were up in arms because they say we will not be able to function because more than 50% of our workers are TPS recipients. So they have a protected status. If you eliminate TPS, you're going to break the entire food industry in Massachusetts. And that's going to happen in all the United States. Obviously, they didn't do that, change of government. So that's your answer.
One last point.
And, you know, there is an empirical answer to that question. I mean, the economists will always ask when a question is posed, is there an empirical answer? Did somebody study that? The answer is yes. So there are many studies. One of the recent World Bank studies finds out that every immigrant actually creates approximately 2 new jobs. They don't take away a job. They create 2 more jobs.